Hi guys, my name is Werner Jetsen on the AVS forum, and for the past couple of days I have been harassing you about some problems that I have been having with testing out the new firmware with the new function from Oppo to tone map the HDR BT2020 into an SDR BT2020 color space. Now the problem that I have been having on the Sony and also on the GVC is that to me the colors are not seem to be BT2020 when using the function, but are desaturated and look more like Rec 709 colors than they are BT2020. So instead of making 101 posts and taking pictures, because taking pictures, that's something I have to mention. I had a lot of people sending me pictures with the comparison between HDR colors on a certain image on the screen, and then switched on the SDR BT2020 function, took the same picture, and looks like there was no difference between those two colors. Well, actually I did the same thing, made a picture with the iPhone, and on the iPhone it is almost impossible to see the difference, probably because the iPhone has a problem with capturing those highly saturated images. But again, on the screen and on the measurements there's a big difference. On the pictures you hardly or can't see the difference. So what we're going to try to do is, I made a setup here. We're going to capture the process as we go on the screen and try and see what we can do. And if I make any mistakes, please correct me when I'm wrong. I would be more than happy to give in that I'm wrong or that I made the mistake somewhere. I'm also human, so we can all make mistakes. And if it's working, then I would be very glad. But up until now, I am not so satisfied with what I see on my screen. So let's take a look together. Okay guys, so this is the setup. I have hooked up the Oppo directly to the Sony VW760 laser projector. As you can see, I'm using the Meskiola HDR10 Ultra HD test patterns, and for the moment everything is on HDR. So let's check the menu from the Sony. As you can see, contrast slider HDR is on, and if we check the info page to see what resolution and what colors we have BT2020, we have HDR10, and we have 422 sending out by the Oppo, and again with the correct resolution. So everything is fine there. Now let's see what settings we have on the Oppo, and let's take the menu from the Oppo. So again, HDR here is on automatic, and regarding resolution and color space, everything is also set on automatic. Now you can rest assured I have tried every possible other combination, but let's just for the moment see what this does. So HDR is on all the way on the Oppo and on the Sony, and now let's check out some color patterns, RGB color patterns, to see what colors we can find. Okay, so here we have it. I have chosen the red color pattern with 100% saturation. At this point everything is on HDR. So let's take a look at the info page on the Oppo, and we see what the input is and what the output is. So we have 4K resolution, we have HDR, we have BT2020, and we have 10-bit color in 420. Then let's see what we have on the output. We have the same resolution, HDR, BT2020, 12-bit color, and 422, because that's what the Oppo does on the output. So everything appears to be looking good, and the colors we have on the screen are also the colors that I would like to see. We're going to do some measurements after seeing this on Calman to verify it, but this is definitely P3 red, or at least the maximum red that the Sony can provide in the widest color space. So what we are going to do now is I'm going to switch on screen, and we're going again to the menu of the Oppo. We're going to the HDR setting, and I'm going to switch it. Instead of HDR, we're going to feed it SDR, but with the preserved color space of the BT2020 coordinates. So we're switching now. We have to wait a second, and then we press play again, because the Oppo only switches when pressing play. And now this is the color we have on the screen. So as you can see, the saturation of this is totally different. We were going to check on the Sony what we have here. So we don't have HDR anymore, that is correct. Let's see on the info page. So here we have BT2020, so the input is definitely BT2020. We have the correct colors, we have 422, there is no HDR anymore. And if we check on the Sony what kind of color space we are using, then we can clearly see here that we are using BT 2020 colors and that the HDR is on auto. I can also switch it off, but this is definitely not BT 2020 colors. If I measure it, we see the same results, no BT 2020. If I switch on the Oppo again and let's put on HDR again instead of SDR, so we're going again into the menu of the Oppo. We take the HDR settings, we're going to put it on auto. We're going out of the menu, we press play again so the Oppo can switch from the tone mapping feature again to HDR, and now we see that the Sony again has switched to HDR. HDR contrast slider is again there. When we see on the info page, we have 422 BT 2020 HDR, and we have the exact colors we have to have. Let's check again the color space, because here it is, color space BT 2020. So that's the problem that I have been seeing on the Sony, on the JVC. At no point in whatever combination, for me at least, it is possible to get BT 2020 colors out of the Oppo when using the tone mapping feature. Okay, we'll run through some measurements. First of all, let's verify that we have the correct setup. So again, we're going on the Oppo menu and see that the HDR is on auto. We're going to check the info on the Oppo, and again we see that HDR has been passed out and that we have the exact information going to the Sony, so we're all set up here. Then we're going to check the Sony again, and let's see if this is on HDR, which it is. HDR is on here. We can see that the contrast slider is on, and if we go to the info page again, we see we have BT 2020 color space, we have HDR10, we have 422, and we have the correct resolution, so everything is correct. I'm going to take a measurement from Red on Calman. Later on we'll do a small insert so you can see the measurements better, but then you can, at this point, you can see what's happening on the screen. So I'll take the measurement from Red. So there we are. Now we're going to skip to green. Give it a minute here. Okay, so this is the green pattern. We're going to go into Calman and measure green. Okay, let's hit play again and skip to the next, which of course will be blue. Okay, let's hit pause before it disappears. We're on blue. We're going to take the measurement in Calman. Okay, we'll hit play, hit next. So this is yellow. It's a bit different in Calman, but never mind. We're going to the yellow. Okay, yellow. We'll hit play again and next. Then we have cyan. We're going to measure that one. Okay, let's hit play next. And here is the magenta, and let's take the measurement from that one also. So now we have all primary and secondary colors, and we'll have a closer look at the measurements on the color gamut. Now, as you know, the Sony isn't capable of doing 100% P3, so I'm at 89.9 here, but it should be a little bit more, but the meter here that I'm having here is not measuring that correctly. That's not the point, to let you see what the problem actually is, but again, we'll have a closer look at the measurements on the screen. So here we are, a closer look on what I just measured. We can see primary and secondary colors, and they're all at the place where they should be, except this little one, magenta here, but I did not calibrate the projector. That's also not the point. It's just to show you what the tone mapping feature does. So this is the result of the HDR BT2020 setup, with everything set up as it should be, and this is a pretty normal result we're getting here from the measurements. Now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to switch the SDR BT2020 function, so the tone mapping function, on the Oppo on, and we're going to do exact the same measurements, but then in SDR BT2020. Okay, second run. So the Oppo and the projector are still on HDR, so we're going to switch the tone mapping function on the Oppo to SDR BT2020. That's the first step. Okay, so that's been done. We're going to hit play on the Oppo because otherwise it won't switch to the right settings. So there we have it. Then let's check the projector. We see that we have BT2020, no HDR anymore. Let's check the slider, that the HDR contrast is also disappeared. So we are on normal user setting with a normal standard gamma curve, and we are on BT2020 color with no SDR, and we have 422 coming in. So now we're going to do the same exact measurements as we did on HDR BT2020. So we are on red. I will take a measurement from red again. So here we have it. Let's press play and skip to green. Press pause for a while. Let's take green measurement. Okay, there we have it. We're going to blue. And there is blue. Same measurement. We're going to yellow. And there is yellow. Measure it again. Okay. Press play. Press next. Let's go to cyan. There we have cyan. Let's measure that one. Sorry. Press play again. Going to magenta. And let's measure magenta. So here you are. These are the results. Again, let's check the settings to make sure everything is being set up correctly. HDR setting is on tone mapping, HDR off, BT2020 colors preserved. We have 400 nits, which is almost okay. You know as well as I do that that's something that's just a user setting. HDR to SDR mode, we didn't switch that because it doesn't do anything with the colors. Believe me, I have tried all 4 modes. It's just a sort of a adjustment gamma curve. So here the settings are perfectly what they should be. Let's check the info page again. Oh, press for 3 seconds. There we go. So we have HDR 10-bit, and on the output we have SDR 12-bit BT2020. So settings are correct. Double check the settings on the Sony. We are on normal setting. We have no HDR. Sorry, last button. BT2020, no HDR. Color space is, let's check that again to make 100% sure, is on BT2020. As you can see here, HDR is on auto or off, doesn't make any difference. So these are the results. Now let's take a closer look at the measurements of the tone mapping, SDR, HDR to SDR BT2020, and see what the results are. So these are the results of the measurements in SDR BT2020, same color gamut, so the small tiny points here that you see are still the coordinates of the P3. There is nothing changed on the screen, just the results of the measurements, as you can see and clearly see against the measurements of the BT2020 HDR. The color space has been going much smaller and there's a lot less saturation going on here than with the actual HDR BT2020. So that's the problem that I am seeing. Again, if I have too much to drink or did something else that I did wrong, please call me, mail me, post something, because this is something I've been struggling with for a few days, and it seems to me that there is something going wrong somewhere, but I can't put my finger on it, and I would like to have this problem solved. So if anyone can help, give me a call. So for verification, we made a split screen. We just recorded the two same BT2020 patterns, one with the HDR on the Oppo switched on, and of course also the HDR on the Sony switched on. The second one is using the tone mapping feature on the Oppo. So the tone mapping is set to SDR BT2020, and in the Sony the color space BT2020 has been chosen with HDR off, of course. And so you can see the difference between the colors we're having with the tone mapping function on and the colors in HDR10. Both are BT2020 or supposed to be BT2020. Okay, as we have seen before with the Masciola test patterns, the dynamical tone mapping of the Oppo can sometimes be a little bit tricky when displaying test patterns. So to make sure that that is not the problem, I have put in an actual disc, an actual movie. This is the Spider-Man movie, and because of the red on the Spidey suit, I have chosen this scene to make sure we can see the difference between the SDR BT2020, or what's supposed to be SDR BT2020, and the effectively HDR BT2020. So let's check settings again. HDR setting on the Oppo is on auto. Let's check the info on the Oppo. Plus, okay, so 10-bit. We have luminance levels, we have the audio, we have BT2020, we have HDR, we have 12-bit. Everything is as it should be. Let's check the settings on the Sony. HDR is on. We have the correct input. We have BT2020, we have HDR10 as format. And let's check the color space again to make 100% sure we have the correct color space, and the HDR is on auto. So this is the color of the Spidey suit. Let's press play for a few seconds and then see what happens. Okay, we're going to hit pause. We're going to switch the Oppo from HDR auto to SDR BT2020. We're going back. Let's check the info. Okay, let's hit play to make the change happening. I'm going to skip and go back to the same starting point. Now these are the colors on the same Spidey suit. Let's hit play again and see what happens. After this one we're going to do a split screen from the two. Again, let's check on the Sony. So here we have it. We have BT2020, no HDR. And these colors seem a lot less saturated than they are supposed to be in BT2020. So here we have it, the split screen of the same scene. One on the left is on HDR BT2020 and the one on the right is using tone mapping function and is SDR BT2020. Now especially in the first few seconds with the close-up of the Spyder logo on the back of the Spyder suit, you can see a clear difference. It's not always that obvious to see the difference when you have of course colors that are not so highly saturated. The difference will be less obvious, but that is what I'm seeing here, and I hope we can figure out what the problem is. Okay guys, there you have it. Time to call it a day. It's already been a long movie, and to make it even longer, a little bit more explanation, I've done this setup with the JVC with exactly the same results, so there's not a problem with the Sony per se or with the JVC per se. It's probably a combination of both, or maybe I am the one who needs a new firmware and I made a mistake somewhere. So if I did, please correct me, and then I will be more than glad to tell to you that I made a mistake and that there is nothing wrong or nothing to be worried about. I've done a lot of different combinations trying to set the Oppo in custom resolutions, other 422, 444, whatever. It didn't change a thing, so I would be more than glad if someone can find out a solution, and I am also going to try and talk to Oppo and see what they think of this. So thanks for watching, and I hope we can figure it out together.